All right, gosh, that's a mistake I didn't know I was going to. Well, hello, Shiny Crafty People. It's Tim Totten here, and welcome back to the channel. For this video, I want to talk to you about those 10 things that no one ever tells you when you get ready to start learning how to sew. And this is something I wish I had known when I was first learning how to sew all those years ago. So if you're new to sewing, here's 10 things that'll help you shortcut and maybe just do a little bit better, and you won't struggle like so many of us do. Number one, a seam ripper is going to be your friend. You absolutely need to make sure that you have a seam ripper available and ready to go, because more often than not, you're going to be using this thing to fix your mistakes. And the reality is, when you learn how to sew, you're going to be making mistakes. In fact, I've been doing this 35 years. I still make mistakes today. This is one of my favorite tools ever for sewing. Make sure you have a good seam ripper. You could have a beautiful one like this that I was gifted by some friends, and it has 2 different sizes. Definitely make sure you have a good seam ripper so that you can use it when you make those inevitable mistakes. Number 2 is something I wish I had known earlier and could have prepared for. It turns out that fabric, like this beautiful layered cake from Benetix, it's not cheap. Fabric is nowhere near cheap. The days of cheap fabric are long over. In fact, I don't know if they ever exactly existed. And so fabric is not cheap. This is not a cheap hobby. This is something that you will be doing. If you get into quilting or something else, you'll find that you spend a lot more money buying fabric to make a beautiful quilt than you could have gone and just bought something that was mass produced. Of course, we all have huge stashes of fabric. You'll see all this stuff around me, and I have boxes and boxes outside of this little corner. And just realize fabric isn't cheap. You're gonna find yourself spending money on beautiful things that you may not even use right away. Silk, satin, stretchy fabrics. Number 3 is that fabric, not all fabric is beginner friendly. Some fabrics are really hard to use, and you're going to be trying to make things thinking that all fabric's going to be the same, and not the case. So if you're using a specialty fabric, like something that's super stretchy or a satin or something else, recognize that there's very specific ways that you're going to have to not only cut it, but maintain it during the process of putting together maybe a pattern for clothing. And then you might have to handle the edges or the seams a little bit differently. And of course, you might need different needles in your machine so that it can work. Otherwise, you're just gonna be super frustrated for why this particular fabric just doesn't seem to be working out when other stuff has worked perfectly. Number 4 is all about patterns. Trust me, when you first start with a pattern, especially for clothing, you are gonna feel like you're reading a foreign language. And that's because patterns have all of their own special marks and things, and you are probably gonna get super confused. Take your time. In fact, the better plan would be to watch a lot of videos from people on the internet who show you how to use patterns, or maybe even go find someone who's been sewing for years using patterns and ask them just to walk you through your very first pattern. And you'll be surprised how much you'll learn and be able to know about what patterns want from you. Also, I'm going to tell you that I've made this mistake myself so many times. Make sure you read the pattern and do what it says. If it tells you to run the pattern along the straight of grain or along the grain of the fabric a certain way, just do it. Don't question why. That instruction is there for a reason. Number 5 is something you may not believe, but trust me, your sewing machine is not out to get you. It doesn't know anything about you. It's not a thinking machine. It is operating the way it's supposed to. And if you've threaded it wrong, or you've got something not properly oiled, or there's something not set properly, it's going to malfunction. And while that will definitely be your fault, you don't need to beat yourself up about it. The truth is, most of the time with my sewing machine, if it gets really messy and there's a nest of threads and other things, I just know that I need to take a deep breath, walk away for a few minutes, come back, unthread everything, untangle that mess of threads, and then rethread the machine. Make sure that the threads are pulling through properly, that the tension is accurate on the top and both in the bobbin, and then start over. And usually about 80% of the time that solves the problem. Now, if you have another issue, it might be that the fabric you're using isn't compatible with the thread or the needle that you're using, or maybe you've got so many layers that it's not pulling through your machine. You want to double check it and see what reasons it could be, but the machine's not out to get you. Number 6 is one I'm a huge fan of. Ironing is just as important as sewing. It is just as important as sewing to the final product you're going to make. So if you're making a quilt, you need to use an iron to press it. If you're doing clothing, the same thing. Like if you see a sleeve on a nice jacket and it's beautifully laid and turns down the way it's supposed to, So often that's because it's been pressed appropriately using an iron or a steamer. So make sure that you're using your iron. In fact, the difference between, see these, that's a log cabin quilt design there. The only way you're gonna get it as precise and beautiful as that is to use an iron after every single piece that's added on and then squaring it up. An iron is your friend. Number 7, and this is one you will not believe, but it's so true. Most often, cutting takes longer than sewing. Yeah, it's absolutely right. Because first of all, you can always take threads out when you're sewing and like, oh, I made a mistake, and you can grab your handy seam ripper. When you cut, you've got to have measured 2 or 3 times beforehand and then cut. If you cut wrong, that whole piece is messed up and you got to start over again. So you really should be taking longer to cut your pieces for whatever you're making. This is even more important for clothing, where it's going to be very specific sizing. Quilting, you get a little bit easier plan because oftentimes, quilt designs are using 2.5-inch strips or 5-inch pieces or whatever, but you're really going to take more time to cut all those pieces out than even they will take to sew together. Number 8, this is especially important if you're making clothes. Fitting is tricky. The fit that you make for something, and it can be changed as little by how much of a seam allowance you use or whether you turn the corner too fast on a specific thing, even which way you cut the fabrics. And if the fabrics aren't cut at the right sort of bias or whatever else, it may not twist around the body like it's supposed to. And truthfully, even though the pattern says you're like a size whatever, doesn't mean that your body is exactly that size. So if you're making clothing for yourself or someone else, just recognize you're gonna have to do a little bit of work adjusting to make it fit. In fact, I made my sister's wedding dress once. Well, I say once. One time when my sister was getting married, I made her wedding dress. Unfortunately, I made it 3 times because I messed it up so bad the first couple. Luckily, the first one was muslin, but the second one was literally made out of satin, and I had to make it again a 3rd time. And I will probably never, ever make a wedding dress ever again because of that. Fit is difficult, so don't beat yourself up if you make a piece of clothing for the very first time and it doesn't fit. You're gonna learn. Number 8, and I tell this to people all the time, you don't need every gadget. You absolutely do not need every gadget out there, because there are all kinds of gadgets out there that every couple of months somebody comes out with a new gadget that's supposed to make your life faster. And many of the gadgets do, they make the task easier. But people were sewing for thousands of years before these gadgets came around, and it worked. They made beautiful, intricate things. So just know, you don't have to have every single gadget that comes on the market. In fact, I say take the money and buy more fabric. And number 10, just know that progress is messy, but it's worth it. You are going to make so many lovely things as long as you stick with it. Your first project, I almost guarantee you, is not going to come out anywhere close to what you thought it would be, but it's still going to be something that you made. And trust me, the very first things that I made, which were Star Trek costumes, look so terrible now compared to what I could make today. I would be totally embarrassed to even see those, and yet probably just a little bit happy because I could see the progress that I've made. So I want to tell you, make sure that you embrace the mess and realize that your progress will get even better the more projects that you put together. You keep trying and trying and trying. So maybe pick an easy project to start so that you'll have something you can achieve, but recognize that you're going to be so much better as you move along, and you'll be making really amazing stuff soon. And frankly, anything you make yourself by hand and has your care and love in it, it's going to be amazing anyway, even if it doesn't quite work exactly the way you want it to. So there you go, 10 things that no one tells you when you first start sewing, but that hopefully will make your life so much easier as you embark upon this journey. And I hope even if you've been sewing for years and you watch this channel, that you'll remember that some of these things are important to remind yourself of as you're doing your sewing project. Now, I have a lot of really amazing supporters here on YouTube and people who I consider my friends. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like some more content and some behind the scenes stuff and maybe some videos that I don't just put on YouTube because maybe they're not gonna reach the wider audience, they're on my Patreon channel and you can go join that. And most of the content is available there for free. So if you click on the link in the description below, you'll go to my Patreon channel and you'll be able to see some of the really fun stuff that I do that maybe isn't exactly sewing related, but is still something you might be interested in. Of course, there are a couple paid levels and I love those people who do support me financially there, but it's not required. Now, you will see on there that there are some really amazing people who do monetarily support the channel, and I'm gonna list their names down here below. So thank you so much for being one of my fantastic patrons and for watching me for so long. So until next time, stay crafty. Bye for now. All right, I wonder if you can sharpen a seam ripper because I've used this so much it's starting to get dull.